Hi, Les.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Just give everybody a couple minutes to join. Just want to give Bill some time to join, so we'll just hold on another minute, folks. Hey, Les, did you hear from Keith at all if he's going to be able to join?
He accepted the invite, so that's the only indication that I had that he was coming.
Okay, maybe he's just caught up.
Okay, he's here. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I just texted, oh, there's Bill. Perfect. All right. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. So it looks like we have everyone. It's 1:03 p.m., so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Looks like we do have quorum. I'll go ahead and just run through who we have on the Zoom. So Onaunathone, I'm chair of the council. We have Tessie Kinnaman, Maka'ala Ka'amoana, Mary Berger, Roy Abe, Robin Kay, Ron Terry, Stephanie Dunbar-Cole, Keith Kawaoka, Mahina Tudor, and our newest member, Don Hager Nordblom. For council members, we have Les Segundo from the Office of Environmental Quality Control, and our AG, Bill Cooper. We also have one member of the public with us, Raleigh Fujisaki. All right, so for those of you who don't know, like I just said, we do have a new member who was appointed to the council. Don, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody, and welcome.
Hi, how are you? Some of you I know, Maka'ala and Les and Onauna and Ron, of course. And I think of course, Robin, it's nice to see you on this as well. Thank you for allowing me on the council. Look forward to helping you guys and myself and learning all about what I can do for you guys and vice versa.
All right, thanks, Don. Do you want to just tell us briefly, for those who don't know you, a little bit about what you do and
Sure.
what your interest was in joining the council?
So some of you know I'm a regulatory planner from before. I used to work for DLNR from 2000 to 2011. After that, I went to the rail and I did the programmatic agreement for a year and a half. After that, I went to HCDA, which is Hawaii Community Development Authority, which is affordable housing in Kaka'ako. And after that, I went to Army National Guard and I was the NEPA coordinator. So I also served on MacZag with Robin Kay. And I think Maka'ala and Ron were off MacZag at that point. And then basically I'm a land use planner. So I have my own firm right now, but basically I've always helped out the community. So I do community plans. So I did the West Maui all hazard plan. And I also did the West Maui community plan that we just got done with the last year. So basically always trying to get in there and help out. And I also do pro bono projects. So right now I'm helping Halawa Church in Molokai try to rebuild and repair and maintain. And that's always fun. So it's fun to do these regulatory things, and it's fun to also, be out there in the general public. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. Well, again, welcome. And if at any point in the process you have any questions, just go ahead and let us know.
Okay.
All right. So next up on the agenda, we don't have meeting minutes for this meeting.
No.
We're gonna work on that. So hopefully January we can start catching up.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Keith, for the OEQC Director's Report. Oh, Keith, you're on mute.
Thanks. Thanks, Anona. Good afternoon, everybody. Besides COVID operations that we're dealing with right now that you're hearing in the media, we've been dealing with the budget for the biennium FY21-22. I think I mentioned this before, it's repairs repeating. Looks like the budget scenario that we're going to be operating from is based on a 20% reduction in operating budgets. BNF and the governor are still reviewing the various departments' reviews. We've gone through ours last week. Furloughs are still in the picture, probably starting next January. We're looking at probably a 2-day per month furloughs. And this will affect only general funded positions, which OAQC is all general funded, as you know. Special funds and federal funds staff are not included in this furloughs. Projection is for the budget. We're looking at probably a 6-year window of these reductions. State is looking at probably about a $650 million plus deficit every year. And this is even with the state borrowing money to make up some of the deficit, but we're still facing that kind of a shortfall. On the furlough, like I mentioned, we'll probably go for another 4 years. And this is based still on discussions with the various collecting bargaining units, of course. My guess, going forward, some programs may be eliminated. RIFs are likely in certain parts of the state administration. And then the latest wrinkle is budget restrictions that were placed on all the departments, a 5 to 10% reduction in this fiscal year's budget. So what that translates us for OAQC is we probably don't have enough money to do the annual report this time, at least for printing. Information I think was talked about last meeting was to discuss and compile the data as envisioned, but it probably needs to be done by council members and distributed on a fairly limited basis, like emails and the like to the legislature. So the operating budget is really come down to the bare bones with these restrictions right now. And we can barely have enough for meeting just the regular operations of the office. So that's all I have, Nana. Back to you.
Thanks, Keith, for letting us know. I guess, so, understood about the annual report and the printing budget. It's of course really sad to hear that, but not entirely unexpected. When would we know 100% that that's being cut just for our planning purposes? Or are you recommending that we already proceed with the understanding that it's going to be cut?
The restrictions have already been imposed. So we're trying to, based on those restrictions, with the limited budget we have for those based on restriction, it's in effect now.
Okay, thanks,
Can
Keith.
I ask you a question, Keith? We had
Yeah,
this conversation in the legislative committee meeting and we're not clear, and you referenced biennium a few minutes ago. Is 2021 the second year of the biennium for the legislature, or is it the beginning of a new biennium?
The first year.
Sorry.
It's the first year of the biennium.
So 2021 is the first year of the next biennium.
And it's a 2-year biennium, as you know. So
Yes, but it's beginning in 2021.
yeah.
Okay, because we had some legislation, we didn't know whether it would carry over or not. So this is very helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on what Keith presented? Okay, thanks very much, Keith. Okay, Ron, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you for the exemption committee update.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. I figured I'd report on our one action item, of course, and then move on to, I'm asking this of you, Onauna, and then move on to the judiciary discussion, and then finally bring up the items 5 and 6 from our agenda. Is that okay? Or
Yep, that's fine.
okay, great. All right. This time we had only one list under consideration, and it was for the Department of Environmental Services, the City and County of Honolulu. And we had been going back and forth with them on their list, and they responded, and that material was attached to the agenda for the exemption committee, but I'm not sure that you guys got it. Did you get that? Was that part of the Environmental Council agenda?
You know what? It wasn't attached.
Yeah, I just noticed that on the agenda.
Same.
I'm wondering what we should do.
Bill, any advice? You're on mute.
You
Bill,
Oh,
you're
you're-
muted.
toggled it off again, buddy.
You're still on mute. Yeah.
I would say, can you hear me now? Yeah, if it's not on the agenda, then I would not want to talk about it. If it's not agendized.
Well,
So,
it is-
yeah,
Go
sorry,
ahead,
go ahead.
Banana.
I was gonna say, the list and the action item are agendized, but the actual exemption list wasn't attached to the to the action item. So really what's coming from the council or from the committee is a recommendation that the council go ahead and approve publication of the list for public comment. So we're not concurring with the list yet. It's just for public comment.
Yeah, that's no problem then. Okay. I don't see any problem with that then.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Okay, great. Now I know that there's some committee members who might be in the dark about what the list has on it. Unless you happen to glance at the exemption committee agenda and open that up, you all could have done that, but you weren't instructed to. But we're at the stage of the process where we release it for public comment. We had some, I won't call them issues, but we had some questions that came up during the process. They addressed all the questions, I think, very thoroughly, and adjusted the list in some areas that we felt needed adjustment. And particularly they added the dark sky provision from the HRS, which we have asked all of our county agencies to do because it's a state law, not a county law, but it provides extra protection for lighting to ensure that it doesn't affect seabirds and astronomy for that matter. And they made a few other minor changes. And so we unanimously approved the list for release for public comment, a recommendation that is to you folks to do that. Are there any questions?
Ron, I'll just add that, you know, for the rest of the council members who may not have had a chance to review it, when we do release it for public comment, one thing that Ron has asked all of the committee members to do is to submit comments as if you're a public member. So I'll put that out there to everybody as well, so that you folks do get a chance to review it and get your comments in for the committee to review.
Do you need a motion, Onana, or not for this?
I think that the motion is the committee recommendation. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
Does it
Yep.
need a second?
I don't think it needs a second because it's coming out of committee, but Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you know, my default is, you know, it doesn't hurt, do it. So,
Okay, Robin, I guess.
Robin will second. Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of publishing the Honolulu Department of Environmental Services exemption list, 15-day comment period, okay. Mahina, I can't see you, so let me know if you're voting aye or not. Oh, aye, okay, thank you. All right, any opposed? All right, and any abstentions? All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And, you know, we'll try to make sure that in the future it gets on the agenda. We did have a little issue with a meeting coming up so quickly, and then Thanksgiving and all that crap. So it was tough to get it together, I guess. Then we had a couple other discussions that were not for, you know, there's no action items attached to them, but I think they're important for everybody to hear. One is the judiciary had come to us and asked if they should be preparing an exemption list like other agencies, because they're increasingly managing a number of small projects. All their big projects and some of their small projects are done by DAGs, but because DAGs had been overwhelmed, judiciary had some capacity in their capital improvements area to take on some projects. In other words, to go out to design consultants with RFPs, get the stuff designed, get it permitted, and get it constructed. But they were often asked by other agencies during this process whether they had complied with Chapter 343. I think mostly out of curiosity rather than as part of regulation. And they through research, Onauna and Bill determined pretty conclusively that they are not agencies. The judiciary is not an agency in 343. It's specifically excluded. It's got to be an executive agency. So just like the legislature isn't an agency. And that might be coming up, that issue may be coming up again later on in the meeting with Robin's update. We had a lot of discussion with Joanne Crepane from their capital program and determined that essentially they're applicants under Chapter 343 because they are doing things. They're not, you know, they don't, it's not like they don't exist. They're out there. So when they go to agencies, if there are discretionary approvals involved, then they fit in the applicant realm in Chapter 343. So far, they have not had any discretionary approvals pending. What they have are building permits and approvals from the water supply for backflow preventers and UIC modifications and NPDES general permits that don't trigger, that aren't discretionary approvals. So I think we advise them that they can keep proceeding along basically as they have been doing for some years. And because they're applicants, they don't need to do Chapter 343 themselves. If they get a discretionary permit as part of their minor projects, then that agency that accepts and potentially approves the permit is the Chapter 343 agency. And that agency can apply the exemption process to their projects. And that's our story, and we're sticking to it. As far as we can tell, that's a proper thing to do. I just wanted to inform the council that this has come up, and we've talked to them. I don't know if there are any questions or comments on that.
No questions,
No.
no comments? Oh,
Oh,
go
well,
ahead.
no, this is just Bill, Rod. I think you nailed it right on the nail right on the head. And I concur with that completely. I did do a follow-up email with Ms. Joanne Kopakanik and informed her that if she had any further questions, she could direct them towards me, and then I could possibly bring it up to the council later if I couldn't answer them.
Thank you, Bill. You guys are awfully quiet. Remind me, I used to teach a class after lunch. So it's like, okay.
It's an indication of our complete confidence in you, Ron.
Yeah, right. I want to go, is this thing on? Are you guys in the room?
Ron, don't forget you wanted to add a conversation for the next agenda item. Next.
I do. I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, listen to me some more. Yeah. So another thing we wanted to talk about, and that the committee authorized me to do, is to solicit feedback from the agencies that are producing lists of exemption notices. And those of you who pay careful attention to Chapter 343 and the OEQC environmental notice will recall that on the 8th of the month, agencies that have done Part 2 exemptions should publish those. Just a little notice about them. It's a one-liner spreadsheet. And agencies are increasingly doing that. Not enough of them are, but this is how they comply with the law, to let the public know about exemptions that they've issued. So I am going to solicit feedback from the various agencies and see how the process has been for them. I'm particularly interested to hear if there's been any public response, if the public has said anything during this time, whether they've given a contact name and number, a description of the exemption and where it is. Is the public contacting you guys and asking questions about these exemptions? I also want to know if the process has been burdensome, if there's any way we could approve it, if they think it works, doesn't work, so that, we talk eventually about revisiting the rules, see if there's any tweaking that's needed. This will be one of the data inputs into that. And then finally, we had on our agenda the pros and cons of countywide lists. So Maui County has we don't have Rob on here, do we?
No, he's not going to be able to join today.
Okay. Well, Maui County is the one county that has a countywide list. I mean, Robin's in Maui County too, but I don't think he knows, as far as I know, he doesn't know as much about it as Rob does, because he was in the mayor's office right in the middle of this. And we want to know whether it works, doesn't work, whether we should be encouraging agencies to go that way or not, or investigating how well it's working. That way, not all the 15 agencies in a county have to have their own exemption list. Each, they could all belong to one. And I think it would promote interdepartmental dialogue and possibly, if coordinated through the mayor's office, lead to more systematic consideration of exemptions and EAs and that sort of thing. So I want to explore that, and I'm going to ask that, or maybe I hereby ask that we put that on next month's agenda. And Robin is going to contact some folks in the county of Maui and see if maybe we can get somebody over there who is real familiar with how this all was done, how it works now, and might have some comment, who could perhaps join us for this meeting.
I have it down on my notes to add it to the January agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And if, are there any questions about these other two items? If not, my report is concluded. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ron, and to the rest of the exemption committee. Good work, everybody. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we do have the annual report committee update. Unfortunately, Rob couldn't join today's meetings, and we ended up having to, very last minute cancel the annual report committee meeting. But I'm hoping that the rest of the annual report committee members can maybe give me an update. I can start, at the last meeting, Rob and I had discussed that we would work on drafting the letter to the agencies for outreach regarding the survey. That hasn't been done yet. I will work on that, later today or tomorrow at the latest and try to get that out. And apologies for the delay. I know Rob was having some computer issues and whatnot, but in any event, that'll get done this week. But from the other committee members, if you can update me what else needs to be done. And I'm hoping that maybe Steph or somebody can kind of take the lead, because, I'm not sure if Rob's going to be able to be real involved for the rest of the month or not.
Thanks, Onana. Robin, would you mind sharing where the survey is at? Apologies,
Sure.
but I haven't been a part of those conversations.
No, we've had a bit of a communications breakdown, and but I don't want to lose any time on this, because as I mentioned to Onana, there are two volunteers who've already put a lot of time into this, and I don't want them to be. I want to honor that time. So my knowledge of where and I've not spoken to Rob. My knowledge of where we stand is A, the letter that Onana mentioned. B, I think that we've already collected and correct me here, folks, but I thought we'd already collected the list of contacts for Honolulu County, Maui County, and Hawaii County. And I'm assuming that Les has all three of those lists. Somebody must, because I didn't have anything to do with compiling them, but I thought they'd been compiled. That being the case, we need to get those to our SurveyMonkey folks along with the letter and let them know they're my neighbors. I mean, a couple of blocks away. I can communicate with them, let them know we're back on track, and we'll have those lists and the letter, maybe by Monday or so. Onana, not to put any time pressure on you, but
Sure. So the contacts, if just while we're on the subject, Les did get a compilation of the contacts, correct, Les? That's what the email that you sent out.
Yeah, but those were the contacts from last year, which were the six agencies that you wanted to look at.
Mm-hmm.
There's a larger list, but those are the 66 statewide agency contacts for all of the executive agencies of the state and county government. Yeah, I don't know which one you want me to send.
Let me interject here, Onana. That's my understanding was that Ron Terry prepared a list of contacts for Hawaii Island. Either Roy or Les did it for Honolulu, and
yeah, I did the one for Honolulu.
Yeah, so we have two, and Rob was supposed to do the one for Maui. So that's separate then.
Tessie did one for Kauai.
I did
I'm
Kauai.
sorry, I forgot. Excuse me. Of course, you're so far away from our island that I often forget about you, which is impossible when I see you, Makala. So I'm sorry. Yes, so we have, to my knowledge, we should have all of those lists And it wasn't 66, it was going to be much less than that as a total. So if somebody would take the responsibility for putting those 4 lists together, then we can get them, I can get them to the SurveyMonkey crew. And with Onauna's letter, we're ready to go. The fact that we can't print it is not an insurmountable problem, because it's going to be an electronic collection of data, and they, the SurveyMonkey people, offered to do the analysis and compilation of the data. So I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be on time if we can just wrap up these next few logistical pieces in the next, week or so.
Yeah, and so Les, there were 2 things. The 6 agencies, you did send me the letter. That was a letter from last year.
Mhm.
But I thought you had also sent out an email that compiled the lists that Tessie and Roy and Ron had worked on. Was that not from you?
I don't believe so. I think they were supposed to send something to me, right?
Okay.
And I haven't received anything yet.
Okay. So Ron, Roy, and Tessie, who did you send your list to?
I sent it to Rob.
Okay. Can you guys if you
Yeah.
sent it to, can you just
Yeah.
resend it to Les? And
Okay.
then Les, if we can ask if you can please recompile it.
Okay.
And get it to Robin. Robin, you'll take
That's fine.
point on
Yes.
that?
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
then
one of the challenges is that the directors are changing for Honolulu, I believe, as well as Big Island. So some are already looking for new jobs and so on. So I'm not sure how responsive they're going to be.
Yeah, we'll just try to get it,
Yeah. But
sent
hopefully they'll
out.
pass it on. But
Mhm,
yeah, right in the middle of the administration changes. So.
mhm.
Nana, I would ask you, since you've had the most success in communicating with Rob, to see if he can put his list together as well. I mean, I don't know the Maui County folks. He would be the only one to do that.
Yeah, I will reach out to him. I just have to say, I don't think we're gonna get it.
Yeah.
And Don, I hate to put you into the fire.
I was just
on
going to say,
your
ask
birthday,
Dawn.
but
Yeah.
does this sound like something you could maybe assist with over the next couple of days? And if not,
Are you looking for just a couple names? Or are you looking for like department heads? Or I can certainly give you names. That's not an issue. And emails. And
Dawn, let me suggest this. Let me send you the survey questions.
Okay.
And that should give you an idea who best to send, who would be best to respond to those countywide.
Okay.
Would that work? I'll send you that today. And then if you can turn around your thoughts, what we would need from you, please, again, I know you've just joined us, but is the actual contact email address, that kind of information. So we can just give it to the survey people and then have them send it out.
Okay. And do you
But
want, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
do you want planning, or do you want like all the like environmental management and public works, like all the heads like that? Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Thanks, Don.
thank you, Don.
So
Okay,
I think
once we get that, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, Anana, my sense is that if we get those lists and the letter, we're pretty much ready to go. They've already, my knowledge of the last conversation we had with the SurveyMonkey folks is they were waiting for confirmation that the questions we had were going to work. I will just contact her and say, yes, those are the questions. Here is the list of people. The letter is coming. What else do you need from us? And I can make that connection, and hopefully we'll be okay.
Okay, thank you
Because-
so much, Robin. And
Well, they were going to send out the survey, and then they were also going to do a follow-up.
mhm,
They were going to make it an anonymous, as anonymous as possible, but still enable them to track those people. And they were going to send out a second letter. Hey guys, we've heard from 40% of you. Some of you haven't responded. Please get back to us. Yada yada. So,
no, that's great. Thank you. Roy, you had your hand up. Go
Yeah, a
ahead.
lot of the contact information is on the county website. So if you get desperate, that'll be a source. And they have email addresses, phone numbers, and so on.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's great that the folks doing the survey are going to try and keep it as confidential as possible. I know that's something that we had previously talked about. So in their transmittal, I would assume that type of language would be, in there, and I can try to work that into our letter as well. And maybe Robin, I'll have you just take a look to make sure that I'm correctly characterizing how confidential it is and what's actually going to be tracked.
And I'll coordinate that with Lisa and Max.
Mhm. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, thank you everybody for stepping up with this. Yeah, again, I'll try to get in touch with Rob. I think we just need to kind of proceed. I think he might just be out of pocket for the near future anyways. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
So will I be receiving the lists from, I guess, the people that were working on the list? I don't know, I forgot what council members were working on
Yeah,
it.
so I asked Ron, Roy, and Tessie to go ahead and send their list to you directly, and then
Okay,
once Dawn gets her list as well, if she can send that to you, Les,
okay,
and
that's fine.
compile it, and then you'll transmit it to
I'll
Robin.
transmit that to Robin. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Thank you.
I'm just doing my list right now. It was in my log file and editing it for who's there and who's not there. But my contact people were all deeper in the department, and almost all of them are staying. So I'm not going to be at my computer tomorrow or the next day. So I thought I should do it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay. All right, any other questions on annual report? We'll keep, chugging through and hopefully get it out on time this year. So thanks, everyone.
Thank
right.
you, Robin.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, Robin, still on you for legislative committee then.
Okay, can you all hear me? I'm off mute? Yeah, okay. We had a kind of a lengthy agenda and a very, very good discussion. The first conversation we had was about the appeals process. And the question we discussed was, should we try, I had been recused, so I was not part of that process internally. But I've heard from a number of you about the broader parameters of that process and some of the challenges that arose. And so our discussion was, do we want to, as a council, suggest that the appeals no longer come to the Environmental Council whatsoever? Or do we want to try and adjust some of the things that gave us some challenge, like the 30-day time frame, or not having a hearing officer, or there were so many of us recused logically because we were involved in environmental issues over the years. And so it was kind of and we could foresee that continuing to be a challenge. So the conversation really boiled down, not to take too much of your time, to focusing on, if we were going to suggest that the appeals no longer come to the Environmental Council, we were going to be asked, well, who should do it? And the logical response to that would have been the Environmental Court. And so what we're suggesting is that Bill, and actually Bill volunteered to do this, Bill was going to talk to the AG's office about who at the Environmental Court, who is the Environmental Court, and talk to them, or figure out how and who would talk to them. So it might be somebody from us. It might be Bill and somebody from us, we're not sure, but to make some contact with the Environmental Court and to discuss some of the challenges that the appeal process had and whether or not to pursue moving it out of the Environmental Council altogether. So Mahina and Mary, any additions to that or clarifications? No. Okay, questions? Yeah, Onana.
Maka'ala can go first, and
You're so kind. Just from the cheap seats, my first contact would be to Denise Antolini, because she was so pivotal in the establishment of the Environmental Court. That would be the first person that I would address that question to. Mahina, I don't know what you're thinking, but that she was the godmother of the Environmental Court when we were struggling to get it going. And obviously Justice Wilson, but there were a few key people, and she was right there in the beginnings, and so for my money, that's who I would propose this conversation with, because I don't want to impact the environmental court in a way that does not meet its original purpose and use. And she would be a good sounding board for that.
Nana?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as for the functions of the environmental court, right? I mean, it's titled environmental court, but they essentially function as a circuit court. And they take cases that come out of specific statutes, including 343. So naturally, I think it would go there. And I don't think it would be much of a change to 343 personally, if we go the route of saying appeals no longer come to the council, they go through the normal process. I mean, 343.7 already has a process for, it's not technically an agency appeal, but you get a declaratory action, right? And there is academic discussion among those of us that work in this area as to whether or not an applicant could appeal directly through 343.7. It had, on a non-acceptance, right? Or do you have to come to the council first? So these were discussions I think we even had internally. I would argue that 343.7C, it basically says that the acceptance of an EIS can be challenged in the circuit court. So, conversely, I would say a non-acceptance should actually be able to be challenged under that provision as well. But because the statute in 343.5 uses the word non-acceptance, some folks have interpreted 343.7 as not allowing applicants to appeal a non-acceptance, right? But I think that would be a very easy clarification if the ledge so chose to allow applicants to essentially challenge a non-acceptance in the same way that an acceptance is challenged. So yeah, anyhow. And if we don't take it away from the council, I definitely have thoughts on how we need to improve the process. And some of that is legislative, the 30-day timeline. I think we need more time, but some of it is through our own rules where we need to look to see, do we need to do this as a full-blown contested case hearing, which I think a lot of us are of the opinion that no, we wouldn't do it that way, but maybe we would. So there are legislative fixes if appeals stick with the council, but there are also fixes that need to be done via our administrative rules.
This is helpful from both of you. Thank you. Our sense was that, and Bill, chime in whenever. Our sense was that if we began to question the process, whether fine tuning it or moving it over, the first question we'd be asked was, well, who's going to do it if you don't do it? And that's why we thought about having the environmental court be the logical place for this to go. So my sense is with both of your comments, we would still proceed with Bill talking to his office to find out what they recommend is the proper channel, if you will. I think, I'm not sure about talking to Denise. I'm a little uncomfortable in this particular one, only because I didn't participate in the process. Obviously I was recused. So if somebody else on the council who was in there wants to talk with Denise, I don't see any harm with that, but I think for sure Bill should pursue where he was going. Again, Mary and Mahina, any comments? Is that reasonable for your perspective?
Well, Robin, I'd like to,
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
yeah, I'd like to just interject. I've already begun the process of contacting my supervisor and following through on my end on what we had discussed about the process of how we could contact the environmental court. As far as Denise Antolini is concerned, nothing would prevent somebody, I believe, from, well, anyway, that's an option too. And so we'll consider that too when I talk to my supervisors, whether we can go out to experts in the field. And Denise is definitely an expert, so anyway, that's kind of what we settled on. And if you decide to do something else as well, that's fine. But as far as the legislation is concerned, this is the process for adjusting the legislation.
Yeah, I think what you're all saying makes a lot of sense. I think we wait till we hear from what Bill learns. And then if we, if it looks like we would prefer to just fine tune it, we have that conversation from you guys who participated and what those fine tunings would be. And if we decide to promote a substantive statutory change, there are a bunch of other things we talked about that might come as a package we could go with, which we could go to the ledge and ask for some adjustments. Granted, there's always the danger of once you open it up, other people may come in and want more things that we don't want. So we have to obviously approach this with great caution. Okay, so we're okay on this one. Thank you, Makala. Good suggestion. We'll wait to hear what Bill learns from his office and then proceed on that. Onan, are you okay with that?
Yes, I agree. I think that's a good approach. And, you know, if we need somebody to reach out to Denise Antolini, I'll volunteer myself and Mahina.
Right, I was going to say Mahina too.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
Okay, the second issue we talked about was the definition of agency. Our intrepid Ron Terry had suggested that we look at that issue. As you heard from his report, it's sort of moot now in terms of the judiciary. But one of the things I thought was interesting was in that conversation, it sounded like you were saying that if a change in the definition was to be made, it would be the judiciary that went to the ledge rather than the Environmental Council. And I think that makes me real happy, and that's a good idea. So any other comments on agency and on that definition?
Well, I wanted to bring up the idea of the grants and aid.
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Oh, you coming?
Hang on.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
hang on. Okay,
Yeah,
the third
Robin,
issue.
I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, yeah, the conversation on the exemption committee, you know, what we basically told them was, if you folks want to start doing more of these, if you want to be a master of an exemption list, then it's something that the judiciary should pursue. It wouldn't necessarily be, you know, the council pursuing that.
And we had, our committee had said that if there were no other issues to go before, to bring up for legislative change, then we weren't going to pursue this. It didn't rise to that level. So having them pursue it, if anyone's to pursue it, makes a lot of sense. So that's fine.
Yeah, and Robin, can I just interject again?
Sure.
I got some feedback from Ms. Krippenay, and she had indicated that, I'm sure she went back and consulted with judiciary's attorneys, but anyway, they don't want to push to create an ability to develop an exemption list. They prefer just to have it as they are right now. And then if there's, and what it is if they have big projects and DAGs handle it, and then they go through DAGs.
Okay.
So that takes a lot of the pressure off anyway.
Yeah, it does. It takes it off our plate. So that's great. But Ron, thank you for raising it. The third issue is also one that came from Ron, and that's about grant and aid. And we had a good conversation about that. And just in the interest of time, and again, Mary and Mahina jump in here, but what we basically, the conclusion we came to is that the real issue was the trigger, not the agent, not the organization, the applicant, the agency. So that if grant and aid is state money, that's a trigger. It doesn't matter if it's a museum getting a grant and aid building a new building, or a nonprofit that services seniors, you know, building a new office space. If it's state money, it's subject to 343. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's what I think. I mean, the legislature provides money on its CIP budget too. All that is subject to 343.
Right.
It's
So
just
GIA would be,
grants and aid. Typically, there's been no monitoring of that. And there's no one in the legislature who you can even ask. So, you know, I know that you and Mary for sure have a zillion contacts there. It'd be interesting if you could talk to somebody who, well, you know, what does Gabbard think about that, or Thielen, or who do you think would be interested in that question?
Well, we have a list of other issues to raise with Gabbard and Rep. Lowen, so we can add that to it. That's probably a good idea. But basically, our sense was that the state money triggers it. So
Yeah, I remember asking Nicole Lowen because a project I was interested in inquiring about was in her district, and she was well aware of it. And she was also in charge of grants and aid. So that was interesting. And she had no idea.
all right, well, I'll add that to the list for Onana and I when we go talk. I haven't told you this yet, Onana, but when we talk to, I guess we won't go, we will figure out a way to have some conversation with Senator Gabbard and Rep. Lowen as the ledge begins to reopen. The fourth budget on our, the fourth bullet on our list was a much broader question. And that was, does OEQC need to continue to exist? It's under-resourced, it's struggled money-wise and staff-wise, not quality of staff, quantity of staff-wise. And would there be a better place for the services that, as Les pointed out, are statutorily required that OEQC is charged with? Would the Office of Planning be a better home for that? It's got more staff, more resources. It's not as financially challenged as OEQC. Our suggestion was twofold. One, to have a conversation that includes Keith, because he wasn't at our committee meeting, and get some feedback from him on this question. And then secondly, to raise this as part of the strategic planning conversation. It's a broader question. The Ledge Committee really couldn't deal with it just by ourselves. It's a much bigger issue. It is a statutory issue. So we need to involve Keith in this, and then we recommend that it goes into the strategic planning agenda or list of questions. Any comment or questions on that? Keith, you should smile. It's another meeting for you. Don't you want to? Okay.
I'd be glad to participate in the discussion. You know, I think what I said about the oncoming budget onslaught possibly could force issues. I don't know how this was determined, but yeah, I mean, not just this office, but other offices are slated. I can't reveal right now which ones they are within the department, but certainly all the offices, as well as the line programs, are really looking at their budgets every which way to make these budget determinations. It has been painful. It's been difficult. And even what we come up with, it still has to go through the legislature, the governor and BNF and the legislature, at least for the first biennium, FY21. So that discussion may be forced upon us, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think hearing your introductory comments just made me think even more. We need to have that conversation to preserve, or to have some thoughts about preserving what is required of OEQC and what is invaluable to the Environmental Council as well. So I think it's something that would fit into the strategic planning conversation, and it might be altered by events beyond our control, but I think we should have it part of that conversation. So thank you, Keith. Just a couple of things left. Some of you have seen OIP's draft of of a proposed piece of legislation about virtual meetings. A third draft was published a couple of weeks ago. And so in the interest of sunshine and our council's advice, we're going to get everybody the most current draft of that legislation, proposed legislation, and ask you, it's very specific and thorough. And we're going to ask all of you to read it and look at it and be prepared to discuss it at the next meeting. So Onauna, again, for the next agenda, OIP's proposed legislation. And I've already sent a link to Les for that.
Yes, I received it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm sorry we didn't have the right, well, it'll be better for the whole council to talk about that. And we can, if we have a ledge committee first, we can discuss it, but so it's worth, when you get it, please take your time. It's a 20-page proposal, but it's pretty interesting. The last thing we talked about, any questions on the OIP thing, by the way? Sorry. Okay. The last thing we talked about was there was a number of proposed legislation at the end of last year's legislative session, the premature closing of the legislative session. And that's why I asked Keith about the biennium, which really makes it a much different conversation. Those particular bills will not automatically move forward. They would need to be reintroduced. And the three that I highlighted for our committee were SB 3152, which was dealing with cultural assessments. And Mahina and Onauna had testified on that. It was proposed by Kai Kahele at the time. So we don't know if that's going to come back up or not. The second one was Senate Bill 2777, a request for money for the Environmental Council, which clearly we do not want to pursue now. And so that one is moot. And then HB 2624 was to establish what was called a hub for information on EAs and EISs to be established at OEQC. And that also may be moot for a number of reasons. Clearly, it would cost money because there was to be an appropriation. Secondly, it would require staff, and that may be overwhelming. Third, OEQC may not exist. So what we decided and what we would suggest is that Onauna and I follow and Keith, if that would work for you, Keith. I'm not sure the politics of that, but would have a conversation with Senator Gabbard and Representative Lowen, as Scott and I did last year before the ledge, where we got a sense of what they were looking at, raised some issues that were critical to the Environmental Council. So that's where we ended up, suggesting that we again have set up some kind of conversation with the senator and the rep. They're both chairs again, as far as I could see. So Onauna, comments on that, Keith?
That's fine with me. I think it makes sense to reach out, especially about, you know, the 343 stuff and the appeals. Probably the OIP bill we'll want to reach out to them about. And yeah, I mean, I agree with the assessment. We're not going to pursue, you know, further budget for the council this session. And, you know, we actually, if I recall correctly, we did submit testimony on HB 2624 as well, or comments, you know, I mean, essentially what the bill proposed. I think OEQC already performed most of those functions, except for maybe, you know, a couple of minor things that could have easily been rolled into OEQC. So we kind of highlighted that for the legislature.
Yeah, we were going to, I had been tasked and did not complete it with speaking to Rep. Lowen and finding out what was pushing them to do that, when so much of what we read the bill asked for was already done at OEQC. So I think just prophylactically, it would be good to ask them about that bill as well, and just see what issues, if any, are on their plate that affect the EC, or will we be ignored, or will we be eliminated?
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. So I agree with that.
Keith, I don't know if you would participate in those conversations, or would that be awkward or wrong?
You know, we do that as a department, of course, with all the various committees that we interface, particularly on the health side. So, and it's a little bit less intimate now when we do it virtually, but it never hurts to discuss with the appropriate chairs what's on their minds and what they might be receptive to from this side. So I think a small virtual meeting would be appropriate.
Okay, I
We can
guess,
work on an agenda to see what, to kind of stay online what we want to discuss.
how about if I draft an agenda or the list of things we'd like to discuss, and I'll send it to Keith and Onauna. And then my sense of the protocol is Onauna as our chair, you would, I mean, I hate to give you the logistics, maybe you would contact Gabbard and Lowen's office to set up a 5-person, or do we do Gabbard separately from Lowen? How do you want to proceed on that?
I think we need to just see what their availability is to meet, right? And it'll probably have to be Zoom or via telephone call. So yeah, we'll just have to reach out and see what's appropriate.
Do you want to do them together or separate?
I don't have a preference. I think last time, Rock came on behalf of Senator Gabbard, and Rep. Lowen was included in that as well. So I think that would be fine to do it together, but up to you. And
Okay,
again, up to their schedules if we can get them together at the same time.
Sure. I'll draft the agenda and the questions and I'll send them to Onauna and Keith. And then Onauna, perhaps the invite would come from you to both of them, seeing their availability for December.
Okay, yeah, and so just to be clear, you do want to meet with them ahead of discussing these list of, I guess, priorities in more detail with this group? I know session starts in January, so I mean, we're crunched for time, but I don't know how you want to best utilize their time with, I see the value in, of course, finding out from them now what could potentially impact the council. But I suspect we'd also want to, if we are going to recommend, changes to 343 on the appeal process, that's something that we should probably talk with them about before, just proposing a bill or something.
Yeah, my sense is they've been our friend in the last couple of years. And when Scott and I went and talked with them about not making any changes to 343 while we were doing the rules, they were totally amenable. They got it. They were fine, and they did what they said. So my sense is that we bring these issues that we don't have answers to these questions, too much up in the air, and get some guidance from them on what their thinking is. They may say, we don't want to deal with this stuff at all this year. Forget it. Before we invest much more time in it. So I think we just say, as the new year approaches, we would like to give you some information and get your feedback on a couple of questions. Here, for example, are the 3 issues we're in the middle of discussing. Could you find a joint time to meet with Keith and Onauna and I, a Zoom meeting, and see what they say? They may blow us off and say, look, this is such a low priority,
Okay. Yeah, if you
That's
can
my
get
sense.
me the agenda and maybe even draft that language that you just said, and then I'll tweak it. I can go ahead and send the email out to Senator and Rep. Lowen, Senator
Okay,
Gabbard.
I'll get on that in the next day or so. And I think that's really it. Mahina and Mary, did I leave anything out? Would you like to add any comments? Mary, you're you're awfully quiet.
That's because you're an effective communicator. I don't know.
Oh, come on. Okay, anything else? Anybody else? Questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Robin, and to the Legislative Committee. That's a lot going on. So glad that you folks are tracking all of that. I'll hand it over to Mahina. There was no Rules Committee meeting today, but Mahina, if you want to just give an update and maybe a homework assignment for next time.
Sure. First, I want to apologize for being off camera in the beginning. I had to eat a quick lunch. So I thought about trying to get together a rules committee meeting this month, but it was exceptionally busy. Sorry about that. And I also thought it would be best maybe if the rules committee members, if we could have some time over break, whatever that is, to kind of think about what we should do next. So yeah, I want to stay away from being prescriptive and just hear more about, now that we've had time with the new rules, what kinds of things we should think about changing. There's been a lot of talk about cultural impact assessment, about having more guidance around climate change or greenhouse gas emissions. Robin raised some interesting issues that have been coming about in his community with the new rules. So I just want to, hoping that we could get together a committee meeting in January with thoughts about what you might want to tackle next. That's kind of all I have.
Thank
Any
you, Mahina.
questions or, yeah. And well, I guess in terms of process, how, I guess, sorry, I think this is my first time being like the chair of the rules committee. How would that work? Should we just come to the meeting with ideas, or would it be best to send to Les ahead of time so that we have more of a structured discussion? I don't know.
I think it's up to you as chair of the committee. You decide what's on the agenda, right? I think if people already have ideas and they want to send that to Les, you can have them send it to Les and just get it to you ahead of time, and then we can certainly add it to the agenda for focus, but that wouldn't prevent anybody from, raising new ideas. This is kind of just a brainstorming session, right? We're not, taking action. Really, the things that we're going to be taking action on would need to be agendized. But if it's a brainstorming idea of what do we need to address going forward, that can come up, and there will probably be things that people raise at the meeting and it'll trigger something in somebody else. So yeah, whatever your preference is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe we can just come to the idea with meetings and discuss. But if any non-committee members, want to raise issues, is it okay to send to me? Sorry, all these processes.
Yeah, I would have them just send it to Les. Yeah,
Okay.
especially for the non-committee members. If there are things with the rules that you folks, members of your community have brought up, or your personal experience or anything, go ahead and send it to Les ahead of the next meeting, and we'll get it, to Mahina so that the rules committee can discuss. Awesome. Anything else? Any questions for Mahina? Okay. Well, thanks, Mahina. Okay. I don't think that you folks met either. Any updates on anything?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so something that came up at our last meeting was the desire to create a permitted interaction group to deal with strategic planning. So if anybody wants to go ahead and make a motion for that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we create a permitted interaction group to explore and plan for potential strategic planning session for the council.
Okay, and a second, Robin. All right, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Does anybody want to maybe just give a brief description on the request for creating a PIG?
Should we constitute the PIG as part of the motion?
I'm sorry?
Should we constitute the PIG as part of the motion?
Yes, that's a good idea. Are you okay with that friendly amendment, Mary?
Sure, that's what I said.
Okay. Well, like assigning the members, that's what you meant, right, Ron?
Right.
Okay.
So the motion is that we approve the creation of a permitted interaction group to explore and plan a potential strategic planning session for the council with the following members serving in those positions.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
everybody raise your hand now. All right, I'll raise my hand. I'd like to do that work.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, Robin. Anybody else? Roy
Roy has his hand up.
and Mike? Okay. So Roy and Mike. All right. So I think that's good. As a reminder, for a PIG, we need to have less than quorum for council members, but you are also allowed to have non-council members on the PIG. I know there was some expression the last time of inviting potentially non-council members. Do you folks want to, discuss those options now as well as part of the motion?
I think it's a healthy thing to have non-council people helping us plan what the council's focus should be over the next few years. I don't know that I could recommend 2 or 3 people, but I think it's a healthy thing. We are a public body, and can't hurt.
Thank you.
I was thinking about it after that discussion the last time, and of possibly people, I was thinking of the people that made the biggest investment in submitting comments when we were doing the, rewriting 343. Maybe we take a look at that and see if there's good resources there, since they obviously cared about the work we do.
Good idea.
It would also be good, someone who does strategic planning, as a part of their own way of conducting their business. Do we have to name those people now? Because or can we just?
Bill, do we need to name the non-council PIG members right now?
You're muted, Bill.
Hey, Bill, you're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me now? I would think, yes, you do, because, you want to know who you're voting for on the outside, and someone might have someone in mind that another member might feel is not appropriate, So I wouldn't want to just have a blanket, outside person be available. I mean, but anyway, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree. But we could have a PIG that could gain members after we vote. Next meeting, we could vote more members in. But if you want to have a PIG meeting before now and the next meeting, council meeting, I think we should name who they are. We did last time.
Thanks, Ron. I couldn't recall if we had previously named them. So, I mean, I'd suggest we just approve it with Mary, Robin, Roy, and Mike as the current PIG members. And, obviously the PIG can start reaching out and see who they would want, which we can further approve at the January meeting. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, because we got to ask people first.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll go ahead and call the question. All those in favor of approving the permitted interaction group with Mary, Robin, Roy, and Mike as the initial members, and this permitted interaction group will, explore and plan a potential strategic planning session for the council, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do we have any opposed? Or are you opposed, Tessie? No. Okay, any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. So for the PIG members, I'll let you, because you are a permitted interaction group, you are able to operate outside of Sunshine. So I'll leave it to you folks to go ahead and coordinate when your meeting times are and take it from there, basically.
Does that mean if we're going to do it, obviously virtually, that Les needs to set up the meetings for us?
He does not, because I mean, if you folks have your own Zoom accounts, you could do your own Zoom account.
Mary, do you have one? Okay,
Yeah.
I
as
have
long
a
as one of
full-
us has it.
I have a full paid blah, blah, blah thing, so we don't have any limitations.
Yeah,
Okay.
that might be
Awesome.
better. I don't want to suck up too much of OEQC's time. But
Yeah.
of course, I know the OEQC is there if we need them, right?
As long as one of us has the access, then that's fine. So Mary can be the lead for that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, folks. Or anything else on the PIG before we move on? Nope. Okay. So next up, talking about meeting dates for 2021. Over the last several years, we've, I think, kept our first Tuesday of the month for meetings, with the exception of the Novembers, where our election day will usually do that, move our meeting to the second Tuesday of the month. Does the first Tuesday of the month continue to work for this group? Fine for me. Sorry, go
It
ahead, Mary.
continues to have the same hardship for me that it's always had.
Right, thank you, Mary.
So
Okay.
it's gotten even more difficult because the chairperson of that group, my hardship before was that it met early in the morning and I had to adjust my flight. Now the chairperson meets late morning from 11 to 1 to 2 o'clock. So it's just, I just told them, I'm sorry, I have to do OEQC. When we went on Zoom, I was able to make that meeting in the morning because we weren't flying. But the person that's the chair is of a different personality, shall we say. So
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess for this group, so I definitely don't want to change it around any one person's schedule, but if there is a majority where, no, I get it, Mary. I'm sensitive. I feel bad because yes, you're right. You've had a conflict. It's been tough for you all along. If there is a better day or a better time that works for people, I mean, I suspect we'll be meeting virtually through at least the first half of 2021, maybe for all of 2021. Is there a want that folks want to, I mean, we could move our meetings earlier in the day. I think, Mary, you'd still have a conflict if you folks are meeting mid-morning.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I was just being selfish, pointing out that I was being magnanimous.
No, it's good. I mean, it gets the conversation rolling, right? So, I'm inclined to keep things the way they are, but again, we at the end of every year we do open this up for discussion if this doesn't work. I mean, people's schedules change, right? So, is there anybody else who has better suggestions for different meeting times? Do we want to just keep it the way it is? Let me know.
I think, I'm sorry for Mary. I'm glad she's able to make it, but I think we've established a consistency that would be great to follow. Dawn, is there any challenge for you as the newest person here? That's fine. So I would say let's keep it the way it is.
So our next meeting will be January 5th.
That's correct. January 5th for the next meeting. Full council would meet again at 1 o'clock. Committee meeting. So I think the times we had basically moved the times up earlier for this meeting, right? Exemptions met at 11:30, which I think was good because we definitely would have run over our hour. Let's see, what else did we have for everybody else? I think annual report was at 9 and legislative committee was at 10:30. Is that correct? Or 10?
Ledge was at 10.
Ledge was at 10? Okay. So we will have to work in a rules committee meeting for next time.
I think Ledge won't need an hour and a half next time.
Okay. So you
I
could
think
do
an hour.
10 to 11?
Yeah.
Okay, so for rules, that leaves like a half an hour, 11 to 11:30. Do you need an hour and a half again, Ron, for next, well, we have comments, huh?
Yeah, I think we might.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You won't need an annual report committee,
Meeting.
right?
Yeah,
And that was at 9.
That was, yeah, 9 to 10.
I'm not sure we'd need that. Steph, chime in, but I think by that point, it ought to be in the hands of, it
Mhm.
ought to be done.
Yeah,
Or-
so, sounds right. Seth, what do you think?
I think that's, I mean, you know, guys, look at this last year, but yes, hopefully.
Okay. So let's say no annual report committee meeting for January. Mahina, does the 9 to 10 a.m. work for you for rules? And so rules committee currently it's Mahina, Makaala, Onauna, and Ron. And Don, let us know, we'll get to it next, but which committees you want to be on. So rules committee, 9 to 10, does that work for January 5th? Okay, so that's what we'll do. Rules committee 9 to 10, ledge 10 to 11, exemption 11:30 to 1, full council at 1. Okay. And then for meetings for the rest of the year, we'll just go ahead and assume first Tuesday of the month throughout the year, except for November, which will be the second Tuesday of the month. Okay. Now committee assignment. So let's see. Oh, I skipped some stuff. Yeah. Well, I have on here discussion of vacant council seats. So as you folks know, we did get a new member appointed. We still have a few council seats open. I had spoken to Sharon and like I said last time, expressed our want for somebody who is a cultural practitioner, has expertise in that area. So I know that we've all been kind of keeping our ears and eyes out for that person. And if anybody has recommendations on that, let me know and I can go ahead and pass that along to boards and commissions. And is there anything else that we want to talk about on this point? Does anybody have any other members that are interested in joining?
I believe Joseph was represented the construction sector, so it'd be nice to have somebody from the construction sector. And I think the General Contractors Association has an environmental person that might. I think that's what Joseph was previously. So that might be good to contact the
No, that's
GCA.
it's a good suggestion. Do you have a personal contact that you could reach out to, Roy?
Yeah, I do. So maybe I should do that. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's not the person that would bring in, but he might know of someone. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind going ahead
Okay.
and
Yeah, we'll go ahead and try that. Yeah.
thank you. All right. Any other desires for certain industries or sectors to be represented on the council? All right, assuming we're still here for the rest of 2021, right? Okay, so I'll just move on very briefly to committee assignments now that we do have a new member. And I know Keith, when you came on, we had asked if you wanted to join committees. I know you're really busy with stuff, but the offer of course still stands if you want to join any committees to let me know. So this is what we have right now, Don. We have 5 committees, annual report, information and outreach, exemption committee, rules, and legislative committee. So the annual report committee really focuses on the preparation of our annual report. By statute, we have to prepare one every year. It's due on January 31st, and we get that published. So we're a little late this past year. We're working to try to get that out on time this year. Information and outreach, this committee, not so much this year because of COVID, but in the past, it has held different seminars, partnered with the law school. We had one on seabird, one on toxoplasmosis, which is why, thanks Makaala, I don't like cats anymore. I'm very cautious of them, but stuff like that. Maybe INO, you can give a better description of what your role is. Somebody from INO. No? Okay.
Well, we did one on invasive species also.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So yeah, kind of hot topics that are going on. It's called information and outreach if things come from the community, or if there's, just good speakers, or a topic that is ripe for creating a speaking engagement. We'll kind of work with them to create that. So yeah, INO has been kind of dormant for the year, but we'll see what we can do with INO in 2020
I
or
was,
2021.
I was contacted by Jonathan Scheuer, who's been working on the issue of the mosquito control. Because my focus is like statewide stuff, not singular location. And he wanted to know how to work with the council, and I referred him to Les, and I don't think that he's done that yet, but that issue is not going away, and it will be statewide. They won't launch it statewide, but it will be statewide. Some of those kinds of efforts are, it's no big deal. They come and they do what they do. They talk about, the program and all the rest of that. There's not much work involved, but it would be very good information for council members, and it would be great for a public presentation.
Where is Jonathan on that issue?
He's the consultant for the folks that want to do the sterilized bugs, the no wahine mosquitoes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we do that, I know a lot of people who are intimately involved now. UH Hilo is taking a leadership role in that.
Yeah, so it'd be great to have some, several of those folks together. I'm sure there's a variety of, there may be a variety of approaches. We've got real sensitivity to it here because I'm tired of getting beat up by hunters and strawberry guavas. But I did have a long talk with his group, and he's trying to address some cultural concerns as well. But that's a good one, and it's statewide, and we're losing our forest birds right and left.
Yeah, sorry to detract from the introduction of the committees, but while we're on the topic, with Zoom capabilities, it might actually be easier for INO to do presentations, because I know we're always looking for funding and, donations for food, and Mary Yuval has been really great at, kind of getting those. But I've attended, at least for the Hawaii State Bar Association, I'm on the Lawyer Wellbeing Task Force, and we recently did a summit with about, I want to say 150 to 175 attorneys, and we did small breakout groups, and it worked really well. And I also did another, just a continuing legal education thing all on Zoom, which I actually prefer because you can look board privately, basically, when you need to. But you still
get up and leave if you must.
yeah, if you need to use the bathroom. Yeah, it's actually really great. So I mean, maybe that's something in 2021 for INO to consider, because I think you can have up to.
I'm perfectly comfortable with Zoom. I just don't have any subjects. I don't have, so.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to call a meeting to say, okay, let's sit here and make something up.
No. And we've had a tough year of adjusting. I think we've had, with the appeal, we had a lot on our plates. I mean, I think the council did a great job of being versatile this year and, pivoting, and we still got a lot done, notwithstanding, all the changes to our normal operations. So yeah, I mean, I'm not criticizing anybody for not doing anything. We had a lot going on this year. But if we want to reintroduce that kind of stuff, I think that's a way to do it.
So this person has to, this person has to contact Les, and then Les sends me his information?
No, that was just the route that I chose for this person, just because.
Okay.
Jonathan, do you want me to have him contact you directly? I can certainly do that.
Well, it would be simple. It would just be one less step. Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so continuing on, so that's kind of how things come up naturally of what the council might be interested in, or members of the public will bring it to our attention. You usually go to INO, and they'll see what we want to do with that. The next committee is the exemption committee, which really handles review of the agency exemption list. especially since we've gone through the new rules. We've been trying to get agencies to update their lists into, the part 1, part 2 to comply with the formatting of the new rules. So Ron leads that and he really works closely with them. And so usually the agencies will come to the exemption committee, we'll review the list, back and forth on comments, and then we bring it to the council. It gets published for a 15-day comment period. And then, the council eventually typically concurs with the list if they agree with it. So that's really what exemption committee does. Rules committee has also been pretty dormant this year because we finished the new EIS rules back in 2018. And so, but now I think it's coming back up, particularly because the rules have been in place for over a year. So there might be some things we need to tweak, but we also need to take another look at our procedural rules. So rules committee will take the first crack at that. And then lastly, we have the legislative committee, which, monitors legislation that might impact the council and other issues that we might want to bring to the legislature's attention. So I think most people are on 2 committees. I think that's really the max that it's a lot. I mean, all of these committees do a lot of work. So you don't have to let me know now. If you want to think about it a little bit, you can email me and we can add you to the committees.
Okay. And I think Robin and Ron probably know, and Maka'ala probably know in terms of like legislative and strategic plans and annual reports. I mean, all that is pretty easy for me because I've been in that regulatory scene. So if you guys want to throw my name into any of your groups.
Uh-oh.
But
I suggest that we deal with the newcomer with a new newcomer rule, and that is that she's on every committee that we have for at least a year and a half, and then she can pick the ones that she enjoys the most.
Legislative would be like the farthest away. The 24/7 rule. But no, I think, I mean, you guys do know, some of you guys already know my strengths and weaknesses. And I can let you know certainly what I'm thinking, but if you need help in the short term or the annual report, I can certainly help with that. I mean, I have some downtime, I have projects, but I can do that kind of stuff. So just let me know.
She was kind of hoping there was a surfing committee.
That's what I was going to say too.
There's no surf over here. Actually, there's supposed to be a big swell. No, women are surfing.
It's pounding here today, pounding.
Yeah, it's like supposed to be 20 feet. The Honolulu girls are over here already from WSL.
Yeah, I had a bunch of friends went to Kauai this morning, so.
Whatever.
Yeah, they're all in Honolulu. Thanks a lot.
They are.
I know.
I want to hear that.
Okay, folks. Well, yeah, Don, just let us know, or if they're, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mary.
Socially distancing. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna say, if anybody particularly wants Don on the committee, let me know, and Don, likewise, let me know what committees you'd like to join. Yeah, and Keith, if you ever have free time and want to join a committee, let us know. But if not, everybody has a lot of work to do. So, okay, I'm gonna just open it up to public forum. If any members of the public want to speak, or if anybody has any other announcements that need to be said, let me know. And then if not, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Okay. All right. So it seems like everybody's ready to go. All right, it's 2:34 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I'll see you folks on January 5th, and I'll be working with the annual report folks to get these letters out. So thank you very much, everybody, for your work, and have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and
Merry
Merry
New Year.
Christmas.
Yep.
Merry Christmas. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Stay safe.